Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Cheating Tales Lab. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know, what part of the world are you watching from right now? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. Eric Mercer's fingers traced the stem of his wine glass as he observed his wife across the table at Le Cirque. The candlelight caught the burgundy liquid, casting a deep red glow across the pristine white tablecloth. 15 years of marriage had taught him to read every micro-expression that crossed Kara's face. Tonight, something was different. The maitre d' appeared at their table, presenting the foie gras with practiced elegance. "Madame, monsieur, bon appétit." Kara's perfectly manicured fingers fidgeted with her napkin, a tell she developed over the years when anxiety crept in. The diamond ring he'd given her 15 years ago caught the light, sending prisms dancing across the table. She hadn't touched her appetizer. "The foie gras is exceptional here," Eric remarked, his tone measured. As CEO of Mercer Tech Cybersecurity, he'd learned to navigate uncomfortable silences with the same precision he used to close multi-million-dollar contracts. "You usually love it." "I'm not very hungry," Kara replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She reached for her water glass, but her hand trembled slightly. Eric set down his fork, studying her face. The usual grace that defined Kara Blanchard Mercer seemed fractured tonight. Her emerald eyes, typically bright and confident, darted around the restaurant, avoiding his gaze. "Something's bothering you," he stated, not a question but an observation. In the background, the soft clink of silverware and murmur of conversation created a cocoon of privacy around their table. "Eric," Kara's voice trembled as she finally met his eyes. "I need to tell you something." He noticed how her fingers gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white against the crisp linen. The perfect facade she'd maintained as his wife and CFO of Mercer Tech showed cracks he'd never seen before. "Your brother Steven and I—" She paused, tears welling in her eyes. The mascara she'd applied so carefully earlier that evening threatened to betray her composure. "We've been together since before our wedding." Eric's face remained impassive, but his mind accelerated into overdrive, processing 15 years of subtle clues he'd chosen to ignore. The late-night office meetings, the family vacations where Steven always seemed to be present, the way they'd laugh at inside jokes during company gatherings. "We're in love," Kara continued, her voice growing stronger as she forced out the words. "And," she took a shaky breath, "all 3 children are his." The ambient noise of the restaurant faded to a dull hum as Eric processed her words. James, Sarah, and Elena. The children he'd raised, loved, and protected, suddenly became strangers in his mind. "We want to raise them together," Kara pressed on, encouraged by his silence. "We thought maybe you'd want to stay in their lives as their uncle." Eric's hand moved to his pocket with deliberate slowness, retrieving his phone with the same steady precision he used in board meetings. He scrolled through his contacts, maintaining unwavering eye contact with Kara as her newfound confidence began to crumble. "Hey, Steve," he spoke into the phone, his voice eerily calm, the kind of calm that preceded corporate takeovers and hostile acquisitions. "Mom's asking about those DNA test results I sent her last week." Kara's face drained of color. The perfect facade she'd maintained for 15 years shattered in an instant. Her lips parted, but no words came out. "You didn't think I knew?" Eric's voice remained steady, but his eyes had turned to steel. 15 years of lies, Kara. 15 years of playing me for a fool. "How, when did you?" she stammered, her composure completely broken. "A CEO doesn't survive in this industry by being naive," Eric replied, taking a deliberate sip of his wine. "Every betrayal leaves a trail. You and Steven just never bothered to cover yours properly." "The children," Kara started, panic rising in her voice, "are legally mine," Eric cut her off. "Every birthday, every school event, every medical decision, all signed with my name. The name you were so eager to take 15 years ago." Tears now flowed freely down Kara's cheeks, smearing her perfect makeup. "Please, Eric, we can talk about this." "Oh, we will," Eric assured her, his tone chilling. "But first, I believe Steven's probably having a very interesting conversation with our mother right now." Family dinner on Sunday should be enlightening. He stood up, straightening his perfectly tailored jacket. I've already ordered a car for you. I wouldn't want my wife to be stranded on our anniversary. The word wife carried enough venom to make Kara flinch. What are you going to do? She whispered, fear evident in her voice. Eric placed several $100 bills on the table, more than enough to cover their barely touched meal. I'm going to do what I do best, Kara. I'm going to make sure everyone gets exactly what they deserve. As he walked away from the table, leaving Kara trembling in her seat, Eric's mind was already mapping out the next moves in this game of corporate and familial chess. 15 years of betrayal had taught him patience. Now it was time to show them all why he'd earned his reputation as one of the most ruthless CEOs in the industry. The study in Eric's penthouse apartment had always been his sanctuary, a place where he made decisions that shaped the future of his company and, by extension, thousands of lives. Tonight, it felt like a war room. Family photos lined the walls, carefully curated moments that now felt like exhibits in a crime scene. Each smile, each embrace, each moment of apparent familial bliss had been built on a foundation of lies. Franklin Parsons stood by the desk, his presence as solid and dependable as the thick manila envelope he held in his hands. As Eric's longtime friend and private investigator, he'd seen the ugliest side of human nature, but this case had struck a particular nerve. Pour yourself a drink, Frank. Eric gestured toward the crystal decanter of 30-year-old Macallan. You've earned it. Franklin moved to the bar cart, the envelope still clutched in his hand. You've known for months, haven't you? He asked, watching Eric pour 2 generous fingers of scotch into each glass. 6 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days, Eric replied, his voice maintaining its unsettling steadiness. When Elena, our youngest, needed a blood type test for her surgery, he took a contemplative sip of his scotch. The results didn't make sense given my blood type. A simple impossibility that unraveled 15 years of deception. Franklin pulled several surveillance photos from the envelope, spreading them across the mahogany desk. Your brother's been living quite the double life. The offshore accounts, the planned escape to Buenos Aires. He paused, studying Eric's reaction. They thought they had it all figured out. They thought they were so clever. Eric smiled, the smile of a predator who'd spotted wounded prey. Did you get everything I asked for? Every transaction, every meeting, every phone call for the past 15 years. Franklin pulled out more documents, each page representing another nail in Stephen and Kara's coffin. Your brother's been embezzling from your company too, using Kara's position as CFO to cover his tracks. The numbers are substantial. Eric picked up one of the surveillance photos. It showed Stephen and Kara in an intimate embrace outside a boutique hotel in Manhattan. How long have you been tracking them? Since the day you asked me to look into the blood type discrepancy, Franklin replied, taking a seat across from Eric. They meet there every Wednesday, like clockwork. Same room, same time. The hotel staff knows them by name. Predictable, Eric muttered, setting down the photo. That's always been Stephen's weakness. Even as kids, he could never resist falling into patterns. Franklin leaned forward, concern etching lines around his eyes. Eric, what you're planning, it's going to destroy them. Completely. They destroyed themselves, Frank. Eric's voice carried an edge that made Franklin sit back slightly. The moment they decided to make a fool of me, to steal my children, to betray not just me but our entire family. They signed their own destruction. And the children? Franklin asked carefully. Eric's expression softened marginally. They deserve to know the truth. About all of it. The lies, the theft, the planned escape that would have torn them from their schools, their friends, everything they've ever known. The offshore accounts alone would put them away for years, Franklin noted, pulling out more financial documents. Add the corporate embezzlement, the fraudulent contracts. It's not enough, Eric cut him off. Prison is too simple, too clean. He stood up, walking to the wall of family photos. I want them to lose everything, just like they planned for me. Franklin watched his friend closely. The board meeting tomorrow will proceed exactly as planned, Eric finished. Stephen's allies think they're making a power play. They don't realize they're walking into a trap 15 years in the making. And Kara? Eric turned back to his friend, his eyes cold. My wife made her choice long ago. Now she gets to live with the consequences. The sound of a key in the front door made both men pause. Footsteps in the hallway, then silence. That would be Kara, Eric said, checking his watch. Right on schedule. Probably here to collect some personal items. Thinking I'm still at the restaurant. Franklin moved toward the study door, but Eric held up a hand. Let her come. I want to see what she does when she thinks no one's watching. The footsteps grew closer, then stopped outside the study door. A moment's hesitation, then the handle turned. Kara stepped into the room, freezing when she saw Eric and Franklin. Her designer dress from dinner was slightly rumpled, her makeup smeared despite obvious attempts to fix it. Eric, she breathed, her eyes darting between the two men. I thought you'd still be out. Clearly, Eric replied, gesturing to the surveillance photos on his desk. Looking for something specific, Kara? Perhaps the backup drive you keep in the false bottom of your desk drawer? Her face paled. How did you? No. Eric finished for her. I know everything, Kara. Every meeting, every transaction. Every lie you and Steven told for the past 15 years. He picked up one of the documents, including the plans for your little escape to Buenos Aires. Tell me, were you planning to tell the children before or after you ruined their lives? You don't understand, Kara started, taking a step forward. Steven and I are finished, Eric cut her off. Your access to the company accounts has been revoked. Your personal accounts are being audited. The board meets tomorrow to discuss the evidence of your embezzlement. Tears welled in Kara's eyes again. The children are legally mine, Eric stated firmly. Every document, every school form, every medical record bears my signature. My name, my legal right as their father. You can't do this, Kara whispered, her voice breaking. Eric's laugh was cold enough to make both Kara and Franklin shiver. I'm not doing anything, Kara. You and Steven did this. Every lie, every betrayal, every stolen dollar led to this moment. He stepped closer to her, his presence overwhelming. You wanted to turn me into their uncle? Congratulations. You've just turned yourself into nothing more than a cautionary tale. Kara stumbled backward, her hand finding the doorframe for support. Without another word, she turned and fled, her heels clicking rapidly down the hallway. That was brutal, Franklin commented after they heard the front door slam. Eric returned to his desk, picking up his scotch. That was just the beginning. He raised his glass in a mock toast. To family. Morning light filtered through the windows of Eric's corner office at Mercer Tech headquarters, but he'd been there for hours. The night had been productive. Pieces carefully moved into position, alliances secured, traps set with precision that would have made Machiavelli proud. The knock on his door was expected. Guadalupe Kane entered first, her sharp features set in a grim expression that matched her impeccably tailored charcoal suit. As head of legal, she'd seen her share of corporate warfare, but this was different. Personal. Behind her, Jeremiah Booth's massive frame filled the doorway, his security chief's presence as intimidating as ever. The board's calling for an emergency meeting, Guadalupe announced without preamble, dropping a stack of documents on Eric's desk. Steven's allies are moving faster than we anticipated. Eric loosened his tie slightly, the only outward sign that he'd been working through the night. How many board members? 4 out of 9, Jeremiah replied, his deep voice resonating through the office. Led by Donald McIntosh. They're claiming you're mentally unstable, citing your recent paranoid behavior. Paranoid, Eric repeated, testing the word. Interesting choice. Steven's work, no doubt, always did have a flair for the dramatic. Guadalupe perched on the edge of his desk, a familiarity earned through years of legal battles fought together. McIntosh is pushing for an immediate vote of no confidence. He's gathered statements from several employees about your erratic behavior over the past few months. Let me guess, Eric's smile was razor-sharp. All employees who owe their positions to Steven's influence. Every single one. Jeremiah confirmed. We've already compiled their financial records. Suspicious deposits, unexplained bonuses, all traceable back to accounts controlled by Steven. Eric reached for his desk drawer, pulling out a thick file. Perfect timing. Call Holly Irwin from PR. It's time to start phase 1. Holly's already here. Guadalupe smiled, matching Eric's predatory expression. She's been working on the press release all night. Beloved CEO uncovers massive embezzlement scheme. Family betrayal rocks corporate giant. The media's going to eat this up? And the evidence? Eric asked, though he already knew the answer. Jeremiah placed a secured laptop on the desk. Everything's ready. Financial records, surveillance footage, email exchanges, 15 years of documentation, all verified and time-stamped. They won't know what hit them. Donald McIntosh, Eric mused, standing to look out over the city. Tell me, Guadalupe, how long has he been on Stephen's payroll? 3 years, she replied promptly. Monthly deposits of $50,000, routed through a shell company in the Caymans. Amateur work. Really? They never expected anyone to look too closely. And now? Now he's a liability, Jeremiah interjected. The SEC would be very interested in those transactions. Not to mention his wife might have questions about certain personal expenses we've uncovered. Eric turned back to his team, his expression coldly satisfied. Make sure all the evidence is ready for the board meeting. Every transaction, every email, every dirty little secret they thought was buried. He paused, checking his watch. And get me Judge Harrison on the phone. It's time to call in that favor. The restraining orders are already being processed, Guadalupe assured him. Once the evidence of financial crimes is presented, we can move for emergency injunctions against both Stephen and Kara. What about the children? Jeremiah asked carefully. Eric's expression hardened. They stay with me. Every legal document, every school record, every medical form names me as their father. Stephen might be their biological father, but legally? His laugh was without humor. He's nothing. A knock at the door interrupted them. Holly Irwin, head of PR, entered with her tablet in hand. The media's already buzzing, she reported. Someone leaked hints about major corporate irregularities at Mercer Tech. The markets are getting nervous. Perfect, Eric nodded. Let them speculate. By the time the board meeting starts, the sharks will be circling. Nothing like the threat of a stock price collapse to focus the mind. The timing needs to be perfect, Guadalupe warned. If we move too soon, the timing will be exactly right, Eric cut her off. I've spent 6 months preparing for this moment. Every detail has been accounted for. Holly's tablet chimed with an incoming message. Sir, your mother's on her way up. Security just cleared her. The atmosphere in the room shifted perceptibly. Martha Mercer wasn't just Eric and Stephen's mother. She was a major shareholder and had been on the board since their father's death. Her influence could sway the remaining undecided board members. Clear the room, Eric ordered, but his tone was gentler than before. Guadalupe, stay. We'll need legal present for this conversation. As the others filed out, Martha Mercer entered the office. At 65, she carried herself with the same dignity that had guided the company through its early years after her husband's death. Today, however, her usual composure seemed strained. I got your message, she said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. Please tell me this is some kind of mistake. Eric gestured for her to sit. You've seen the DNA results? I've seen them. Martha's hands trembled slightly as she placed her handbag on the desk. But there must be some explanation. Stephen wouldn't. He couldn't. Mom, Eric's voice was uncharacteristically soft. There's more you need to see. He nodded to Guadalupe, who placed a folder in front of Martha. Martha opened the folder, her face growing paler with each page she turned. The surveillance photos, bank statements, and email exchanges told a story that no mother ever wanted to read about her children. 15 years, she whispered. They've been lying to all of us for 15 years? The company, too, Guadalupe added gently. The financial fraud alone? Martha's head snapped up, her eyes suddenly sharp. The company? They've been stealing from the company? The tremor in her hands was replaced by a familiar steely resolve, the same determination that had helped her survive the loss of her husband. Millions, Eric confirmed, using Kara's position as CFO to cover their tracks. They were planning to flee to Buenos Aires next month, taking the children, the money, everything. Those children, Martha's voice cracked. My grandchildren. I've watched you raise them, love them, protect them. And all this time, they're still my children, Eric stated firmly. Legally and in every way that matters. Stephen may share their DNA, but he forfeited any right to them the moment he chose to betray this family. Martha stood abruptly, her decision made. The board meeting. When? 2 hours, Guadalupe replied. Donald McIntosh is leading the charge against Eric, claiming mental instability. A bitter laugh escaped Martha's lips. Donald? That pompous fool has been trying to gain control of this company since before my husband died. She turned to Eric, her expression hardening. What do you need from me? Your support, Eric replied simply. When the evidence is presented, when everything comes to light, I need the board to understand that this isn't about revenge. It's about protecting what Dad built, what we've all built. Martha's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained steady. Your father would be proud of you, Eric. Not just for uncovering this, but for how you're handling it. She reached for her son's hand. Show them no mercy. Eric squeezed his mother's hand gently. Trust me, Mom. By the time this is over, everyone will understand exactly why I'm considered the most ruthless CEO in this industry. As Martha left to prepare for the board meeting, Guadalupe gathered the documents they'd need. The pieces are in place, she observed. Stephen and Kara won't know what hit them. That's where you're wrong, Eric replied, straightening his tie as he prepared for battle. They'll know exactly what hit them. They'll just be powerless to stop it. The morning sun had fully risen over the city now, marking the beginning of what would become one of the most dramatic days in Mercer Tech's history. In 2 hours, Eric would walk into the boardroom and begin the systematic destruction of everything his brother and wife had plotted to steal. The thought brought a cold smile to his face. Let them come with their accusations of paranoia and instability. He would respond with 15 years of documented betrayal, fraud, and theft. Let them try to paint him as the villain. He would show them what a real villain could do. The game was set, the players were in position, and Eric Mercer was about to remind everyone why he'd earned his reputation as a man who never forgave betrayal. The Mercer Tech boardroom bristled with tension as 9 executives took their seats around the polished table. Donald McIntosh, his silver hair immaculately styled, adjusted his Hermes tie with practiced nonchalance. 3 other board members, Richardson, Zhang, and Peterson, sat clustered near him, their alliance evident in their positioning. Eric Mercer entered last, Guadalupe Kane at his right shoulder, a stack of identical black folders in her arms. His mother, Martha Mercer, was already seated, her presence commanding respect even in silence. Shall we begin? Donald's voice carried the smug confidence of a man who believed he held all the cards. We've called this emergency session to address serious concerns about the company's leadership. Eric took his seat at the head of the table, his movements measured and precise. By all means, Donald, enlighten us. We're concerned about the direction of the company, Donald announced, his allies nodding in synchronized agreement. Recent events in your personal life? You mean my wife's affair with my brother? Eric interrupted, his voice sharp enough to cut diamond. Or perhaps you're referring to the systematic theft of company funds? A murmur rippled through the room. Donald's confident smile flickered. Now, Eric, Donald attempted to regain control. These wild accusations are thoroughly documented. Eric cut him off again. He nodded to Guadalupe, who began distributing the black folders. Inside, you'll find detailed evidence of a 15-year embezzlement scheme orchestrated by Stephen Mercer and Kara Blanchard Mercer. The room fell silent as the board members flipped through the documents. Donald's face turned ashen as he reached page 3. This is... Board member Sarah Zhang's voice trailed off as she studied the financial records. Impossible? Eric suggested. That's what Stephen and Kara thought. They believed their tracks were well covered. After all, who would suspect the CFO and the beloved younger brother? These offshore accounts, Peterson muttered, scanning the documents. The amounts. Total approximately $97 million, Guadalupe supplied. Siphoned through a complex network of shell companies and false contracts. All authorized by Mrs. Blanchard Mercer in her capacity as CFO, With Mr. Stephen Mercer as the primary beneficiary, Donald's hand trembled slightly as he turned another page. These allegations are serious, but they're not allegations, Donald. Eric's voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. They're facts. Facts that the SEC is very interested in, particularly concerning certain board members who may have been complicit in the fraud. Donald's complexion went from ashen to ghost white. Page 15, Eric continued, his tone conversational. You'll find a fascinating series of transactions. Monthly payments of $50,000 routed through a shell company in the Caymans. Tell me, Donald, does your wife know about the apartment in Tribeca? The one registered to your consulting firm? This is outrageous, Donald sputtered, but his eyes betrayed his panic. Martha Mercer spoke for the first time, her voice carrying the authority of the company's largest shareholder. What's outrageous is the betrayal of trust, not just of the company, but of this family. I move for an immediate vote, Sarah declared, closing her folder with decisive finality, to remove Kara Blanchard Mercer from her position as CFO and initiate a full forensic audit. Seconded, Richardson added quickly, desperate to distance himself from Donald's sinking ship. All in favor? Eric watched as 7 hands raised immediately. Donald and Peterson kept their hands down, but it didn't matter. The die was cast. Motion carries, Guadalupe announced formally. Mrs. Blanchard Mercer is hereby removed from her position, effective immediately. All her accounts and access will be frozen pending investigation. And what about the accusations against you? Donald made one last desperate attempt. Your erratic behavior, the paranoid investigations. Eric's laugh was cold enough to frost the windows. Paranoid? I call it thorough. The same thoroughness that uncovered your involvement, Donald. The same attention to detail that's going to end your career when the SEC reviews those documents. You can't. I already have. Eric stood, straightening his jacket. Guadalupe, please escort Mr. McIntosh to security. I believe federal agents are waiting to ask him some questions about those Cayman accounts. As Donald was led from the room, his face a mask of impotent rage, Eric addressed the remaining board members. Let this serve as a reminder. Mercer Tech was built on trust, integrity, and family values. Anyone who betrays those principles will face the consequences. What about Stephen? Peterson asked, his voice small. My brother made his choices, Eric replied. Now he gets to live with them. All further communications will go through legal. I trust there are no objections? The silence was deafening. Excellent. Eric gathered his papers. Martha, would you join me in my office? We have other matters to discuss. As they left the boardroom, Franklin Parsons waited in the corridor. Federal agents have McIntosh in custody, he reported quietly. They found additional documents in his office. Looks like he was planning his own embezzlement scheme. Of course he was, Eric nodded. Have security clear out Kara's office. Every document, every drive, every post-it note. I want it all cataloged and secured. Already done, Franklin confirmed. And Stephen? A thin smile crossed Eric's face. Oh, I have special plans for my dear brother. The board meeting was just the opening move. Martha Mercer's home had always been a sanctuary of old money elegance and family tradition. Now, sitting in her favorite armchair, her hands trembled as she held the DNA test results that had shattered 15 years of carefully maintained lies. How could they? She whispered, looking up at Eric who stood before her. Your father would be. I need you to make a choice, Mom, Eric said gently, kneeling beside her chair. The ruthless CEO momentarily softened in his mother's presence. Stephen and Kara will try to turn you against me. They'll claim I'm the villain here. Martha's eyes hardened, a flash of the steel that had helped her navigate the corporate world after her husband's death. They've been lying to us for 15 years. They've stolen my grandchildren's truth. She reached for Eric's hand. What do you need me to do? They'll come to you, Eric explained, his tactical mind already mapping out the moves ahead. Stephen will play the victim. He'll talk about love, about how he and Kara couldn't help their feelings. He'll try to use the children as leverage. The children, Martha's voice cracked. Those precious children, how could he do this to them? To you, Because Stephen has always wanted what wasn't his, Eric replied, his tone hardening. Dad's approval, my position, my life. He spent 15 years living a fantasy at my expense. The doorbell rang, its chime echoing through the house. Martha's housekeeper appeared in the doorway. Mr. Stephen is here, ma'am. Right on schedule, Eric murmured. Are you ready for this? Martha straightened in her chair, smoothing her silk blouse with practiced precision. Send him in, Margaret. Stephen Mercer burst into the room, his usual polished appearance slightly disheveled. Mom, you can't believe these lies. Eric's lost his mind. He's destroying everything out of some paranoid delusion. Sit down, Stephen. Martha's voice could have frozen hell itself. Mom, please, you have to understand. Sit down. Stephen sank into the chair opposite her, shooting a venomous glance at Eric. Whatever he's told you. He didn't have to tell me anything. Martha cut him off, holding up the DNA test results. The evidence speaks for itself. 15 years of lies. 15 years of watching Eric raise your children while you played the doting uncle. Did you enjoy it, Stephen? Did it give you pleasure to watch your brother love and care for your children while you plotted to steal them away? It wasn't like that, Stephen protested. Kara and I, we fell in love. We couldn't help our feelings. Couldn't help your feelings? Martha's laugh was bitter. What about your feelings of responsibility? Of family loyalty? What about the company funds you've been stealing? Stephen's face paled. That's not. I don't know what Eric's told you, but the offshore accounts, Eric interjected smoothly. The shell companies. The planned escape to Buenos Aires. Tell me, brother, were you going to say goodbye to Mom before you disappeared with my children? They're my children. Stephen exploded, jumping to his feet. My blood. You've been living my life, playing father to my kids, sleeping with my... The crack of Martha's palm against Stephen's face echoed through the room. He staggered back, more from shock than force. Don't you dare... Martha's voice trembled with rage. Don't you dare try to claim victimhood here. You and Kara chose this. You chose to lie, to betray, to steal. Not just money, but years of memories, moments, love. All built on lies. Mom, please, Stephen's voice cracked. The children. They need their real father. Real father? Eric's laugh was devoid of humor. Where were you when James broke his arm falling from the treehouse? Where were you during Sarah's midnight asthma attacks? Who sat through Elena's surgery, holding her hand while she recovered? Being a father isn't about DNA, Stephen. It's about being there, every day, every moment, through every triumph and tragedy. You can't keep them from me, Stephen threatened. I'll fight you in court. You'll what? Eric's voice turned dangerously soft. Explain to a judge how you committed paternity fraud? How you and Kara embezzled millions from the company? How you were planning to kidnap the children and flee the country? Stephen's face drained of color. You're bluffing. Am I? Eric pulled out his phone, playing a recording. Kara's voice filled the room, discussing their escape plans in detail. I have 15 years of evidence, brother. Every meeting, every transaction, every lie documented and verified. Would you like to hear the conversation where you and Kara planned to drain the children's college funds before running? Martha gasped softly. Stephen slumped in his chair, defeat written across his features. Here's what's going to happen, Eric continued, his voice clinical. You're going to resign from the company. You're going to sign over any claim to the children. You're going to disappear from our lives, or I will bury you so deep in legal proceedings that you'll need 3 lifetimes to see daylight. You can't. I can and I will. Eric stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. You took 15 years from me, Stephen. 15 years of lies while you played happy families with my wife. Did you laugh about it? Did you and Kara share private jokes about fooling stupid, trusting Eric? It wasn't like that, Stephen whispered. No. Eric's smile was razor-sharp. Then explain it to me, brother. Explain how you justified stealing my life, my children, my trust. Explain it to Mom. Explain it to the federal investigators who are very interested in those offshore accounts. Federal investigators? Stephen's head snapped up. Oh, did I forget to mention? Eric's tone was almost pleasant. The SEC is investigating all the financial irregularities. They're particularly interested in the connection to certain South American banks. I believe the term money laundering came up several times. You destroy your own brother? Stephen asked, his voice hollow. You destroyed yourself, Martha interrupted, her voice firm. The moment you chose betrayal over family, you ceased to be my son. The words hit Stephen like physical blows. He staggered to his feet, looking between his mother and brother with desperate eyes. The children are mine, Eric stated with finality. Legally, emotionally, in every way that matters. You're nothing to them, Stephen. Nothing but a cautionary tale about the price of betrayal. The offices of Crosby and Associates radiated old-world legal power, all mahogany and brass. Elena Crosby's corner office, where Kara sat fidgeting with her Hermes scarf, offered a perfect view of the courthouse across the street. She'd chosen this firm carefully, paying the exorbitant retainer with funds Eric didn't know about. After all, Elena Crosby had a reputation for handling high-profile divorces with ruthless efficiency. He can't possibly have proof, Kara insisted, her confidence returning as she outlined their position. It's been 15 years. Stephen and I were careful. There's no paper trail, no evidence of the embezzlement. And the children. Elena Crosby's perfectly manicured hand slid a document across the polished desk. They're charging you with corporate theft? Kara's voice rose as she scanned the pages. He can't prove anything. He already has, Elena replied grimly, her expression suggesting she'd already seen the writing on the wall. Every transaction, every fake account, every meeting with Stephen. The evidence goes back 15 years. That's impossible, Kara protested, but her hands shook as she turned page after page. We covered our tracks. The offshore accounts were untraceable. Apparently not untraceable enough. Elena pulled out another document. The SEC has frozen all accounts associated with you and Stephen. They've already interviewed Donald McIntosh. He's cooperating fully in exchange for leniency. Donald. Kara's perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide her growing pallor. But he promised. Donald McIntosh is facing federal charges, Elena stated flatly. He's giving them everything. The shell companies, the false contracts, the planned escape to Buenos Aires. Tell me you weren't actually planning to flee the country with the children. We had no choice. Kara's composure cracked. Eric would never let us be together. Never let us have the children. The children? Elena's laugh was sharp. Mrs. Mercer, and yes, you're still legally Mrs. Mercer. Let me explain your situation clearly. You committed paternity fraud. You conspired to embezzle nearly $100 million from a publicly traded company. You planned to kidnap 3 minors and flee the country. Do you know what the combined prison sentence for those crimes would be? But the children are legally his, Elena interrupted, her tone brooking no argument. He's been their legal father for 15 years. Every school document, every medical record, every legal paper bears his signature. Your biological argument won't hold up against 15 years of established paternity. There must be something. There isn't. Elena closed the folder with decisive finality. Mr. Mercer's legal team has built an airtight case. The evidence of financial crimes alone would put you away for decades. Add in the planned kidnapping. I want to see my children, Kara demanded, desperation creeping into her voice. That won't be possible, Elena replied. Given the evidence of the planned kidnapping, the court has already granted Mr. Mercer an emergency protective order. You are not to approach the children or attempt contact in any way. He can't do this. Kara surged to her feet, her designer heels clicking against the floor as she paced. I'm their mother. A mother who was planning to steal their college funds before fleeing the country, Elena noted dryly. That detail will play particularly well in family court. I can fight this, Kara insisted. I have resources. No, you don't. Elena's voice was almost gentle now. Every account you control has been frozen. Every asset you thought was hidden has been traced. Mr. Mercer's team has been building this case for months, while you and Stephen played your games. Months? Kara sank back into her chair. He's known for months? Since your daughter's blood test, Elena confirmed. He's been 10 steps ahead of you this entire time. While you and Steven plotted your escape, he was documenting every meeting, every call, every transaction. What are my options? Kara's voice had lost its earlier confidence, reality finally setting in. Elena Crosby leaned back in her chair, studying her client with the practiced eye of a veteran attorney. Honestly? Take the deal. What deal? The one Mr. Mercer's legal team sent over this morning. Elena extracted another document from her desk. In exchange for a full confession and cooperation with the federal investigation, he's willing to recommend leniency in sentencing. Leniency? Kara's laugh held an edge of hysteria. From Eric? The man doesn't know the meaning of mercy. No, Elena agreed, but he does understand strategy. Your confession would implicate Steven more deeply, corroborating the evidence they already have. In return, you might face 5 to 7 years instead of 20 to 30. And the children? Are not part of any negotiation. Elena's tone was firm. Mr. Mercer has made it clear that any attempt to contact them will void any deal immediately. Kara's hand went to her throat, fingering the pearl necklace Eric had given her on their 10th anniversary. He planned this perfectly, didn't he? Every move, every detail. Like a chess master, Elena confirmed. While you and Steven were playing checkers, Mr. Mercer was orchestrating a game neither of you knew you were in. I want to talk to him, Kara declared suddenly. That would be unwise. Please, Kara's voice cracked. 5 minutes. I need to understand. Elena studied her client for a long moment before reaching for her phone. After a brief conversation, she set it down. He's agreed to meet. Here in my office, with both legal teams present. 30 minutes later, Eric Mercer walked into Elena's office, Guadalupe Kane at his side. He looked exactly as he had at their anniversary dinner, not a hair out of place, his expression unreadable. Make it quick, he said, remaining standing. I have a board meeting in an hour. Why? Kara asked, her voice small. Why go to all this trouble? You could have exposed us months ago. Because exposure wasn't enough, Eric replied, his voice clinical. You and Steven didn't just betray me. You betrayed our children, our family, our company. You planned to steal not just money, but their future, their stability, everything I've worked to build for them. We love them. Love? Eric's laugh was sharp enough to make everyone in the room flinch. Love doesn't plot to kidnap children from their home. Love doesn't steal their college funds. Love doesn't spend 15 years living a lie. I never meant to get caught, Eric finished. That's the only thing you're sorry about, Kara. Not the betrayal, not the lies, not the theft. Just the fact that your perfect plan fell apart. Kara's shoulders slumped. The deal. What exactly do you want? Everything, Eric stated simply. Every detail of your arrangement with Steven. Every account, every meeting, every plan you ever made. You're going to help me destroy him, Kara. That's the price of leniency. He's your brother, Kara whispered. No, Eric's voice was ice. He's the man who spent 15 years sleeping with my wife, lying to my face, and plotting to steal my children. Brother? He lost that right the moment he decided to betray everything our family stands for. And what about their right to know their real father? Eric moved with frightening speed, his hands planting on the desk as he leaned forward. I am their real father. Every skinned knee, every nightmare, every triumph and tear, those are mine. Biology doesn't make a father, Kara. Presence does. Love does. Truth does. He straightened, adjusting his cuffs with precise movements. You have 24 hours to decide. Accept the deal, tell me everything, and you might see daylight again before you're 50. Refuse. His smile was terrifying in its calmness. Well, I'm sure you'll make plenty of new friends in federal prison. As Eric turned to leave, Kara called out one last time. Did you ever love me? He paused at the door. I loved who I thought you were. That person never existed. He looked at Elena. 24 hours. After that, we proceed with full charges. The door closed behind him with quiet finality. Kara slumped in her chair, the full weight of her situation finally crushing her carefully constructed world. He's going to destroy us both, she whispered. Elena Crosby gathered the papers on her desk. No, Mrs. Mercer. He's going to make you destroy each other. That's what makes him truly dangerous. He doesn't just want revenge. He wants justice, served cold and calculated, with your own confessions as the weapon. What should I do? Take the deal, Elena advised. Because believe me, what you've seen so far is just the opening move. Mr. Mercer hasn't even begun to show you what true destruction looks like. Kara looked out the window at the courthouse across the street, where her future would soon be decided. The perfect life she'd built on lies was crumbling, and there was nothing to do but watch it fall. The federal courthouse buzzed with anticipation. Reporters lined the steps outside, their cameras ready to capture the culmination of what the media had dubbed the Mercer betrayal. Inside, the gallery packed tight with spectators, corporate executives, legal observers, and curious public drawn by the salacious mix of family betrayal and financial crimes. Stephen and Kara sat at the defendant's table, their designer clothes a final attempt at maintaining dignity. Stephen's Armani suit hung loose on his frame, 6 months of legal proceedings having taken their toll. Beside him, Kara's Chanel jacket couldn't hide how her shoulders trembled. Eric sat in the front row behind the prosecution, his mother Martha beside him. Franklin Parsons occupied the seat on his other side, a thick leather portfolio in his lap containing copies of every damning piece of evidence they'd gathered. All rise. The bailiff's voice cut through the murmurs. The Honorable Judge Carol Willard presiding. Judge Willard took her seat, her expression grave as she surveyed the courtroom. Her reputation for handling high-profile white-collar crimes preceded her. She was known for showing no mercy to those who betrayed positions of trust. Be seated, she commanded. After reviewing all evidence presented during these proceedings, hearing testimony from multiple witnesses, and considering the recommendations from both prosecution and defense, this court is ready to deliver its verdict. Stephen's attorney rose. Your Honor, if I may. You may not, Mr. Phillips, Judge Willard cut him off. Your clients were offered numerous opportunities to show remorse, to make restitution, to accept responsibility for their actions. Instead, they chose to attack the character of the very man they betrayed, to claim persecution when faced with irrefutable evidence of their crimes. Kara's hand crept toward Stevens on the defense table, but he pulled away. Their united front had crumbled weeks ago, each trying to minimize their own culpability at the expense of the other. Eric's strategy of offering separate plea deals had worked perfectly. Their desperation to save themselves had only strengthened the prosecution's case. The court finds the defendants guilty on all charges, Judge Willard announced, her voice carrying authority that silenced even the whispers. Given the systematic nature of their crimes and the devastating breach of trust, this court sees no reason for leniency. She turned her stern gaze to Stephen first. Mr. Stephen Mercer, you stand convicted of embezzlement, money laundering, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted kidnapping. Your actions weren't just crimes against a corporation. They were betrayals of family, of trust, of everything that decent society stands upon. This court sentences you to 25 years in federal prison. Stephen swayed slightly, his attorney's hand steadying him. The gallery erupted in murmurs until the judge's gavel crashed down. Mrs. Kara Blanchard Mercer, Judge Willard continued, you are convicted of the same crimes, with the additional charge of breach of fiduciary duty as CFO. Your position of trust makes your crimes particularly egregious. However, in consideration of your eventual cooperation with prosecutors, this court sentences you to 18 years in federal prison. Kara collapsed into her chair, tears streaming down her face. Her carefully maintained composure finally shattered completely. Furthermore, Judge Willard continued, this court orders full restitution of all embezzled funds, forfeiture of all assets purchased with illegal gains, and bars both defendants from ever serving as officers or directors of any public company. The judge leaned forward, her next words directed at both defendants. You had everything: successful careers, family trust, children who looked up to you. You threw it all away for greed and selfish desire. Let your fate serve as a warning to others who might consider similar betrayals. Bailiff, take the defendants into custody. As federal marshals approached with handcuffs, Stephen finally broke. Eric, he called out desperately. Brother, please. The children. They need to know their real father. Eric remained seated, his expression unchanging as he watched his brother's final attempt at manipulation fail. Martha's hand found his, squeezing gently. Mr. Stephen Mercer. Judge Willard's voice cracked like a whip. Let me be absolutely clear. According to every legal document, every school record, every medical form, Eric Mercer is those children's father. Your biological connection means nothing compared to 15 years of his devotion and care. You forfeited any claim to them the moment you chose betrayal over family. The marshals led Stephen and Kara away in handcuffs. Kara's mascara ran in black streams down her face, while Stephen's shoulders slumped in final defeat. Franklin leaned over to whisper, "Was it worth it?" Eric watched his former wife and brother being led to begin their sentences, thinking of his children safe at home with their grandmother. They'd cried when told the truth, but they'd also shown remarkable resilience. In the end, they'd understood that love and presence meant more than biology. "Every second," he replied, his voice carrying absolute conviction. As the courtroom began to clear, the prosecuting attorney approached. "Mr. Mercer, the U.S. Attorney's Office appreciates your cooperation in this case. Your documentation was instrumental in securing these convictions. Justice needed to be served," Eric replied simply, rising from his seat. "Not just for me, but for every person they betrayed. My children, my mother, our employees whose jobs they risked with their greed." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, shouting questions. Eric strode through them with the same commanding presence he brought to board meetings, his mother on his arm, Franklin and Guadalupe flanking them like guards. "Mr. Mercer, how do you feel about the verdict? Will Mercer Tech recover from this scandal? Any comment on your brother's claims about the children?" Eric paused at the top of the steps, Guadalupe nodding slightly. They'd prepared for this moment, knowing the importance of controlling the narrative. "Justice was served today," he stated, his voice carrying clearly, "not just for my family, but for every Mercer Tech employee, every shareholder, every person who believed in the principles of trust and integrity that our company stands for. As for the children," his voice softened slightly, "they know who their real father is, the one who's been there for every moment of their lives, who will continue to be there, protecting and guiding them. That's what true fatherhood means." 6 months passed, time enough for wounds to begin healing and new patterns to emerge. Eric sat in his expanded corner office at Mercer Tech headquarters, the company's stunning recovery reflected in the quarterly reports spread across his desk. Penny Mack, his new CFO, entered with another stack of documents. Her appointment had been strategic. A former federal prosecutor turned corporate executive, her reputation for ethical leadership had helped restore investor confidence. The boards approved the expansion into Europe, she announced, placing the latest reports on his desk. "Stock price has doubled since the trial. They're calling you the Phoenix of Wall Street now." Phoenix implies destruction preceded renewal, Eric noted, scanning the documents. "I prefer to think we simply revealed our true strength." "The press certainly loves that angle," Penny agreed. "The CEO who uncovered family betrayal, protected shareholder interests, and emerged stronger. It's the kind of corporate leadership story they dream about." Speaking of leadership, Eric signed the last document. "How's the new ethics compliance program?" "Exceeding expectations. Every employee from board level down has completed the training. We're being held up as an industry model for corporate governance." Eric allowed himself a small smile. From the ashes of betrayal, he'd built something stronger, more resilient. The company's market value had soared as investors recognized a leadership that valued integrity over family ties. His intercom buzzed. "Mr. Mercer, Ms. Lopez is here for your meeting. Send her in." Marina Lopez entered, carrying her leather portfolio. As the children's trauma counselor, she'd been instrumental in helping them process the truth about their biological father and the choices that had led to his imprisonment. "The children are doing remarkably well," she reported, taking a seat. "They're showing incredible resilience. James has started talking about college applications. He's thinking business school, following in your footsteps. And Sarah? Elena? Sarah's art therapy sessions are helping her express her feelings constructively." "Elena," Marina smiled warmly. Elena told me yesterday that she's glad you're her real dad. Her words, not mine. Eric felt something in his chest tighten. Through all the corporate battles and legal proceedings, his children's welfare had remained his primary concern. They're asking questions about Stephen and Kara, Marina continued. Normal, healthy questions. They're processing the betrayal without letting it define them. Like father, like children, Penny commented. They get their strength from their grandmother too, Eric acknowledged. Martha's been incredible through all of this. Speaking of dinner, Marina glanced at her watch. Shall we? The new Italian place on Madison has excellent reviews. Eric gathered his jacket, noting how naturally Marina had become part of their lives. Her professional involvement had gradually evolved into something more personal, though both maintained appropriate boundaries while she continued counseling the children. Penny, you'll handle the European press announcements? Already scheduled for tomorrow morning, coordinated across time zones. Go, enjoy your dinner. You've earned it. As Eric and Marina walked to the elevator, employees nodded respectfully. His handling of the crisis had transformed him from feared CEO to revered leader, someone who'd faced betrayal with dignity and emerged stronger. You seem different lately, Marina observed in the elevator. More at peace. Peace implies acceptance, Eric replied. I prefer to think of it as clarity, seeing things and people as they truly are, including yourself. The question hung between them as they reached the lobby. Eric considered it carefully before responding. I always knew who I was, he said finally. What changed was learning who others really were. Sometimes betrayal strips away illusions we didn't know we had. And now we build something real, something based on truth rather than lies. He held the door for her, the gesture natural rather than formal. The children deserve that. We all do. 5 years swept past, bringing changes that even Eric's calculating mind couldn't have predicted. The backyard of his home, a different home, one without ghosts of betrayal in every room, filled with the sound of children's laughter. James, now in his second year at Wharton, tossed a football with Sarah while Elena showed her younger siblings, Eric and Marina's twins, how to properly hold a lacrosse stick. The sight of them together, this blended family born from crisis, brought a satisfaction deeper than any corporate victory. Still thinking about them? Marina asked, joining him on the patio. 5 years of marriage had only strengthened their connection, built on a foundation of honesty that Eric had learned to value above all else. No, he replied honestly, just grateful for what their betrayal led me to. Inside the house, Martha's voice carried as she coordinated dinner preparations. She'd blossomed in her role as grandmother, her love for the twins matching her devotion to James, Sarah, and Elena. The wall of family photos told a new story now, one of truth, resilience, and redemption. Dad, Elena called out, come show the twins that lacrosse move again. Eric moved to join his children, his steps lighter than they'd been in years. The twins, Robert and Claire, raced to him with the unrestrained joy of 4-year-olds who'd never known betrayal. The boarding school called again. Marina mentioned casually, they want you to give the commencement address. Something about integrity and leadership being the perfect theme. Eric taught his twins the proper grip, noting how James automatically moved to help demonstrate. I might do it. The story has value, not just the betrayal, but what came after. How truth, no matter how painful, always provides better foundation than comfortable lies. Martha appeared in the doorway. Dinner's ready. James, help your sisters set the table. As the family gathered around the dining table, a different table, one that had never seen Kara's false smiles or Stephen's hidden agendas, Eric surveyed his world. Martha at one end, Marina at his side. The children arranged around them in a picture of domestic harmony that felt earned rather than inherited. Stephen and Kara served their sentences in separate facilities, their perfect plan destroying everything they'd hoped to build. Their appeals had failed, their claims of family loyalty falling flat against the mountain of evidence Eric had accumulated. Dad, James spoke up, I've been thinking about my summer internship at Mercer Tech. I want to start in compliance and ethics, learn the business from the ground up. Eric nodded approvingly. His eldest had learned the most valuable lesson. Integrity wasn't just a corporate buzzword, but the foundation of everything worth building. The European expansion is exceeding projections, he told his son. Perfect time to learn how ethical leadership translates into global success. Speaking of success, Martha added, Sarah's art is being featured in the school showcase. Elena made honor roll again. And the twins. She beamed at her youngest grandchildren. Well, they're just perfect. Perfect. The word no longer carried the weight of false appearances and maintained lies. This perfection was real, built on truth and forged in the fire of betrayal overcome. The twins regaled everyone with tales from preschool, their innocent chatter filling the space where secrets once lived. Elena helped them with their napkins, showing the natural caregiving that made her talk of becoming a doctor seem inevitable. This was his victory, not the corporate success, not the legal triumph, but this. A family rebuilt on truth, children who understood the value of integrity, a love based on choice rather than obligation. Eric had turned betrayal into triumph, not by forgetting, but by building something stronger from the ruins of what was lost. The past remained, a reminder rather than a burden, while the future stretched ahead bright with possibility. Martha raised her glass. To family. The one we choose, the one we build, the one we earn. To family, they echoed, and Eric squeezed Marina's hand under the table, grateful for every step of the journey that had led them here. Epilogue, 25 years later. The Mercer Tech global headquarters dominated the Manhattan skyline, its architecture a testament to power and precision, much like the man who had built the empire it represented. In the main boardroom, James Mercer stood before the gathered media, his father's commanding presence evident in every gesture. Today marks the 25th anniversary of my father's passing, James began, his voice carrying the same authoritative tone that had made Eric Mercer legendary in corporate circles. And yet, his influence shapes every decision we make at Mercer Tech. At 48, James bore a striking resemblance to his father. The same steely gaze, the same unyielding determination. As CEO of Mercer Tech for the past decade, he'd expanded the company's reach far beyond what even his father had envisioned, though always adherent to the principles Eric had instilled. My father built this company twice, James continued. First as a startup, then again after betrayal threatened to destroy everything. He taught us that true strength lies not in avoiding falls, but in how you rise after them. In the front row, Sarah Mercerchin, now a renowned corporate attorney and Mercer Tech's chief legal officer, sat beside their younger sister Elena, who had become one of the country's leading psychiatrists specializing in trauma and betrayal recovery. The twins, Robert and Claire, now 29, managed Mercer Tech's European and Asian divisions respectively. The Mercer Institute of Corporate Ethics, James announced, will be established with an initial endowment of $5 billion. Its mission, to foster leadership built on integrity, to study the intersection of family business and corporate governance, and to ensure that future generations understand the price of betrayal and the value of trust. Marina Mercer, elegant at 75, watched her stepson with pride. After Eric's death from a heart attack 10 years ago, she had continued his legacy of family unity, maintaining the weekly dinners that brought all the children together. Her marriage to Eric had lasted 20 years, each one reinforcing the lesson that love built on truth was stronger than any built on lies. The Institute's first case study, James revealed, will be the complete story of the Mercer betrayal. For the first time, all documents, recordings, and evidence will be made public. Not to sensationalize, but to educate. The media erupted with questions. The Mercer betrayal had become legendary in corporate circles, studied in business schools, but never with complete access to the primary sources. Dr. Elena Mercer will head the Psychological Research Division, James continued once the room quieted. Her work with children of family betrayal has already revolutionized the field. Elena's professional focus had been shaped by her own experience. She'd taken the pain of discovering Stephen's betrayal and transformed it into a mission to help others heal from similar traumas. The Legal Ethics Department will be led by Sarah Mercerchin, whose groundbreaking work in corporate governance has set new standards for family-owned businesses. Sarah's legal career had been influenced by watching Guadalupe Cain dismantle Stephen and Kara's schemes. She'd later clerked for Judge Willard before joining Mercer Tech's legal team. And yes, James addressed the question before it could be asked. The Institute will include detailed analysis of what happened to those involved in the original betrayal. The room fell silent, awaiting details of the fate of Stephen Mercer and Kara Blanchard Mercer. Stephen Mercer died in federal prison 15 years ago, James stated matter-of-factly. He never expressed remorse, never acknowledged his crimes, and died alone. Kara Blanchard Mercer served 18 years, was released 5 years ago, and now lives in obscurity in Arizona. Neither ever attempted to contact us again. In the years after their imprisonment, Stephen had tried repeatedly to manipulate the situation, writing letters claiming repentance, attempting to use intermediaries to reach the children. Eric had blocked every attempt, his resolve never wavering. The Institute will house the Martha Mercer Memorial Library, James added, honoring their grandmother who had passed away 2 years ago at 92. Her strength helped hold this family together during its darkest hours. Martha had lived to see her grandchildren's successes, her great-grandchildren's births, and the complete vindication of her choice to stand with Eric. She'd died peaceful, surrounded by the family she'd helped preserve. The Franklin Parsons Investigative Journalism Fellowship will support reporters focusing on corporate fraud and family business ethics. James acknowledged the late investigator whose meticulous work had been crucial to exposing the betrayal. Franklin had passed away 5 years ago, but his methods were still taught in private investigation courses. Guadalupe Kane, though retired, will serve as a special advisor. James nodded to the former legal chief, now in her 80s but sharp as ever. She had mentored Sarah through law school and remained a trusted family friend. And Penny Mac's governance protocols, which helped rebuild Mercer Tech's reputation, will form the foundation of our ethics curriculum. Penny had retired as CFO 5 years ago but continued serving on multiple corporate boards, her reputation for ethical leadership making her highly sought after. But perhaps the most important legacy, James's voice softened slightly, is the one my father left his children. He taught us that character isn't inherited, it's built, choice by choice, day by day. He showed us that true strength isn't in never being betrayed, but in how you respond to betrayal. The twins, Robert and Claire, exchanged glances. Though born after the betrayal, they had grown up understanding its importance. Eric had ensured all his children knew the story, not as a burden but as a lesson in resilience. Our father was known as ruthless, James acknowledged, and he was, when circumstances required it. But his ruthlessness served a purpose, protecting what mattered: family, integrity, truth. He taught us that mercy without justice is weakness, and justice without principle is just revenge. In the years since Eric's death, his children had each embodied different aspects of his legacy. James had his strategic brilliance, Sarah his unwavering principles, Elena his insight into human nature, and the twins his global vision. The Mercer name today stands for something more than corporate success, James concluded. It stands for the triumph of truth over lies, of integrity over expedience, of justice over manipulation. The Institute will ensure these lessons outlive us all. After the presentation, the family gathered in Eric's old office, now a preserved memorial to his leadership. Marina touched the desk where he'd spent so many late nights planning, strategizing, protecting their future. "He would be proud," she said softly, "not just of the success, but of who you've all become." "He knew," Elena replied, her professional insight blending with personal experience. "That's why he fought so hard. Not just for justice, but for our future." Sarah examined the wall of family photos, so different from the ones that had once haunted Eric's study. These showed genuine moments: graduations, weddings, births, celebrations untainted by hidden lies. "I saw Kara last year," she revealed quietly, "at a legal conference in Phoenix. She saw me too, but she turned and walked away. She looked empty." "Stephen's son contacted me," Elena added, "the one he had in prison with a guard. He wanted to know his family history. I sent him the public records but maintained father's boundary. No personal contact. Dad's rules about them never changed," James noted. "No contact, no exceptions. The boundaries he set protected us then, and they protect us now." Claire, who had Eric's tactical mind, nodded. "The betrayal shaped us, but it didn't define us. That was his greatest victory." He told me once, Marina shared, that his greatest achievement wasn't the company's success or even exposing the betrayal. It was raising children who understood the value of truth. Robert, who had his father's gift for strategy, smiled. The Institute ensures that lesson reaches beyond our family. Dad's legacy becomes a roadmap for others facing similar challenges. To Dad, James raised his glass, using the same scotch Eric had favored, who taught us that family isn't about blood. It's about choice, truth, and principles worth fighting for. To Eric, Marina added softly. As the family toasted, the Manhattan skyline stretched before them, Mercer Tech's influence reaching across continents. But Eric's true legacy wasn't in buildings or bank accounts. It lived in the principles his children embodied, the lessons they taught their own children, and the standards they maintained. Stephen and Kara had tried to steal a family, but instead had forged one stronger than blood. Their betrayal had meant to destroy Eric Mercer's world. Instead, it had created his legacy. His children understood now what he had known then, that true strength comes not from avoiding betrayal, but from facing it with unwavering principle and unflinching resolve. In boardrooms, classrooms, and homes across the world, the Mercer story would continue teaching its timeless lesson. Integrity, once lost, cannot be reclaimed, but a life built on truth can withstand any betrayal. The Mercer Institute would stand as a monument not just to corporate ethics, but to a father who had turned personal betrayal into public triumph, who had shaped his pain into purpose, and who had taught his children that some principles are worth any price to maintain. Eric Mercer's legend lived on not just in the empire he built, but in the values he instilled, a legacy of truth, justice, and unwavering strength in the face of betrayal. His children had become living testimonies to his principles, each in their own way carrying forward the lessons learned from the man who had refused to let betrayal define his family's future. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.